I thought we were the protectors of truth. Democrats, Republicans, you all lie. We, a small band of survivors, are on our way to the Steel City to find the resistance. Join us.
Welcome to the Steel City Resistance with Senior Airman Ward Miller and the ironclad voice of Pittsburgh, Hutch Jr., laying down verbal C4 to blow away the lies and the political tomfoolery. Your papers have been cleared. Welcome to the Steel City Resistance.
KSFO, San Francisco. Hutch, you're on the Savage Nation.
I want to thank you for your service to the nation, Dr. Savage, first of all. And you struck a nerve. I, too, fired on a high school rifle team. And I realized how much the country had changed. I actually learned to shoot. I'm 51 years old. I learned to shoot when I was 10 or 11 at a very liberal, Episcopal-run summer camp. And
Amazing.
that's totally banned now, but that's how much it's changed.
Yes, yes, and you know why? You know why boys and girls were taught how to shoot when they were children in those days? For self-defense, number one, and for national security, number two. The wise elders of the country realized that we needed young people to become familiar with weapons so the nation could defend itself from enemies foreign. And we have lost that concept because we have total morons running the country.
Absolutely. And it was progressive. When my grandfather went to that same camp, they had pugilism, they had boxing and everything else. And I think what we've seen with these mass shooters, they all have some kind of problem. When you and I went to school and we lost playing some sports game or even individual competition, when we lost, and we were taught how to lose. These children have not been taught how to lose. With this
well, that's interesting. The whole concept. No, you're making an extremely important point, which is the liberal doxology, the doxies of the liberal establishment, which is that everyone is equal, no one should lose, everyone's a winner. Well, some kids are losers in certain things or in all things. They can't be equal to the heroes in all things. How many times did you lose as a kid? I lost an awful lot. I got punched in the nose. I saw stars in the hallway of a high school. A kid hit me real hard. I almost went down a flight of stairs. I learned not to. I learned not to get. I learned not to get punched in the nose again from a kid walking up behind me, for example. Right now, I learned never to trust anyone walking behind me on the staircase. In gym, for example, these were hard men who were gym teachers. We had to climb ropes. I don't know if you remember it. There were ropes hanging from the ceiling that were used in the military in my high school. And we had to climb up these ropes with knots in them. Did you have that in your high school?
We did, Dr. Savage. We actually had poles that were suspended up on the ceiling, and they lowered them down. And when we were in gym class, it was a military formation.
Thank you. And by the way, and what I'm getting at is this. It was so hard to climb that rope. You had to fight every fear in yourself if you were slightly afraid of heights or you weren't that strong. But you didn't want to fail in front of that gym class. You struggled to climb as high as you could, so there'd be no shame if you didn't reach the ceiling. If they saw you tried, then they slapped you on the back. But if they saw you were a punk and wimped out on the ground and started to whine and say, I can't do it, you had no respect from any of the other boys in that gymnasium. That is the country that I grew up in. You think it was easy to climb the rope for everybody? Some kids couldn't do it, but they tried to do it. Now they took the ropes down so that everybody's an equal wimp.
I agree with you 100%. And again, I think the learning to lose concept is something that we have to initiate. I mean, it's just
because defeat is part of life, Hutch. Defeat not only in school, but defeat in business, in love, in personal goals is very much a part of the life process. And if a child is taught, oh, good shot, Johnny, when the kid, the bat flew out of his hand and hit someone in the head. Great, Johnny. Some kids are terrible ball players. I wasn't a good ball player. But you know what? I wanted to succeed at something. Well, I found out that I'm good at certain things. I can write books. I can speak well. I can do radio. I can be a good father, I hope. So you find out what you can do well. If you don't know what you can't do well, how can you know what you can do well? Am I right, Hutch?
You're absolutely right, and we're lucky that you found your calling, sir.
I'll give you another example, and I'll admit it right on this show. Maybe it's a failing, maybe it isn't. When I was a young boy, my dream was to be a naval aviator. I had pictures of carrier decks on my ceiling. I had pictures of airplanes that flew on carrier decks. I wanted to go to the U.S. Air Force Academy, but guess what? They didn't want me. I wanted to go to Annapolis. It was way before affirmative action, where they take every moron that they could possibly get their hands on and turn them into a naval graduate or a U.S. Air Force Academy graduate. I had no chance to get into any of those schools, and so I didn't become what I wanted to become. I found that, number two, I couldn't fly either. I can pilot a boat very well. I'm not afraid of the water, but I found out that I don't have whatever the skill is required of a combat pilot, I don't have those skills. They're remarkably important skills, and they should be encouraged in young men and young women. I didn't have them. So what did I do? Go boo-hoo about it? You go on in life. You find out what you can do. Hutch, I'm sending you a copy of Train Tracks, and you'll see the track that I've been on since I'm a boy. Always struggling. Life is a struggle, for God's sakes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Steel City Resistance. My name is Hutch Jr., and I am located deep, deep down in the bunker in the city of Pittsburgh.
And I'm Ward Miller, also in the city of Pittsburgh, and that intro we had was our own Hutch Jr., involved in a conversation with Dr. Savage live. This happened last week, and we meant to talk about it last week, and with the technical difficulties and whatnot that we had, it kind of slipped our minds, and we decided that this week we wanted to open the show with it and discuss that a little bit.
And I'm glad we did. I mean, I didn't want to sound like a ham or anything like that, but it's just something that when you get an opportunity like that, you have to go with it, and that's what we did. And I think it was very exciting for me. I was glad I got a chance to be on there.
Yeah, and you brought up really good points, and Dr. Savage confirmed the thought that they were good points. And we've talked about this on the show before, and that the whole thing about the kids that aren't allowed to, everybody gets a trophy. When I was growing up, that just didn't happen.
No,
if
it
you
didn't.
Screwed up, if your team lost, you lost, and you learned how to lose. And that's the part that, and I agree with you, and I agree with Dr. Savage. That's the biggest part of the problem is these kids don't know how to lose. These kids don't know how to face adversity, because they're not presented with any. If you get something tough put in front of you, it's okay, Johnny. You can quit. We were never taught that it was okay to quit, and I think that that's a big part of the problem is. If it's too hard for you, just don't do it. You can quit.
Everybody gets a trophy.
You don't have to do this.
Everybody gets a trophy for participation, and it's just disgusting. And the thing about it is the kids are keeping score, whether or not the adults are. Or not, it doesn't matter. The kids are. Definitely
you ask the kid. The kid knows. We lost. We got spanked or whatever. But you got a trophy. For participation. And in fact, I think that does more to their psyche, more adverse things to their psyche than anything else.
They think they're supposed to enter the workforce at $80,000 a year, and they go in and they play all these violent games. And I mean, I'm not saying for 95% of society the violent games are a game, but when you get one of these people that's a whack job, that's how he solves his problems. If he doesn't know how to lose, and I mean, I was 5'7" in school. You know what I mean? So I was a short kid in the school. I got bullied, picked. I wouldn't say bullied, but I got picked on, and there was occasions where I had to suck it up. And you learned, you suck it up. You're not going to go get a rifle and start shooting people.
No, and that's a big part of the problem. And there was actually and I don't remember who said it, and I don't want to misquote who said it, but the bottom line is the problem is the fact that everybody knows who the shooter was. They automatically become a hero.
Yeah.
And their name, Timothy McVeigh or what's the other guy?
I think that was Ward on last week's show that quoted that and stopped me from saying the guy's name. If you recall, I think you're quoting yourself.
Oh, was it? Well, no. I mean, but it's the same thing. It was,
Right.
And the guy that shot John Lennon, and all these people. Our media makes them the story. They're the hero.
Oh yeah.
People know more about Timothy McVeigh than the hundreds of people that he slaughtered.
Exactly.
And that's the part. That's a big part of the problem too, because these guys are all loners. They can accomplish nothing. They're skillless. And the only kind of recognition they can get is by doing something like this on a grand scale, so that their name gets reported in the media and they're some sort of anti-hero.
Oh yeah, and they keep it up too. They don't slow down in the media. They make sure you know his name and where he went to school and all the other problems, because it wasn't
he
his
had
fault
for lunch the day that he pulled the trigger, and
it wasn't his fault. It was his surroundings and his circumstance.
Oh, and it was his mother's fault.
Sure.
His mother should have had him committed. And
oh yeah, now coming back to some other events. This fiscal cliff. If I hear that phrase one more time, but anyway, this tax hikes coming in January and the sequestration and everything. We're going to have another low information program because the Democrats are playing this pretty skillfully, and I don't know how it's going to happen, because you and I know, and the SCR audience knows, the only reason that we're even where we are today is because the Senate hasn't passed a budget in 4 years. If they would have done their jobs, and not only that, but they got a raise. They failed in their most basic duty, and they got a raise. That's the world we're living in right now. And I think these.
Well, the thing is too, Hutch. They failed to do their constitutional duty. It is in the Constitution that they pass a budget every year.
Oh, I agree,
and they are blatantly ignoring the Constitution, and no one is calling them on it.
And they're doing it in more ways than one. I mean, Dianne Feinstein's doing it too with her Second Amendment rape. I mean, you people, we need your help right now. This is a very critical time in our country's history, and we appreciate all the support that we've gotten to this point. We do, absolutely. But we're going to have to, this is the consequences of the election that we lost. And we have to hold back the leftist wave that is upon us. We have to properly articulate why we are right. The attack on assault-style weapons, the Second Amendment is all about assault-style weapons. It's not about hunting. It's not about protecting your home, per se. It's about protecting our liberty. And that's something, I'll tell you, I was watching for show prep. I was watching Fox News Sunday, Ward. And I don't particularly like Lindsey Graham. I think he's about as constitutional as, well, let's just say I don't like him.
Okay.
But his cred,
and we'll leave it at that.
His street cred went up today when he stood up there on Fox News Sunday against Weinstein or whatever the hell her name is. Feinstein. And he opened his monologue or his rebuttal to her anti-constitutional rant with, "I own an AR-15." And I was like, damn, Lindsey, that's a good way to open it up. That's just something I noticed.
Here's the thing. What makes I need somebody to define things for me, because I'm a fairly literal type person, and I consider myself fairly educated, but I want to know, what is an assault style weapon? Is it an AR-15? Because an AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. It's a military style. It looks like an M16, which is an assault rifle or assault weapon, but it's a semi-automatic. It meets all the criteria for a non-assault weapon, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, because based on the definition that our liberal friends always give, is an assault weapon is something that can go fully automatic, or it can hold more than 30 rounds. Or
she was
whatever.
On the air today saying that there was a legal piece of equipment that you could buy that could convert an AR-15 to fully automatic. And I'm thinking, you're stupid, lady. I mean, you're just.
No, there's not.
The thing is,
there are some now, Hutch. We call pig a pig here.
You can put the sear in, but it's illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal, and you can find an illegal gunsmith who will do it, but there's nothing legal about it.
Right.
There's you can't just go to any gunsmith or gun store and say, here, I have an AR-15, make it fully automatic, and they're going to do it for you.
And if you're going to do that, you better have a heavy barrel.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, it's the same thing. You can make all the laws you want. You can, Chicago has one of the strictest gun laws on the planet, and they just went over 500 kills.
And let's delve on that a little bit. They went over 500 homicides so far this year.
And the year's not over yet.
You know how many Americans have been killed in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan this year? 309. And if you add every country's casualties, 400 and some. So that tells you how your gun control works. It's more dangerous in the rotten city of Chicago than it is in the mountains of Afghanistan. If that doesn't tell you everything that you need to know, I don't know what to tell you. And they do have full automatic in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah. They're using AK-47s that have full rock and roll, and they can go, and they can fire 30 rounds a second. And that's the thing. You take guns away from law-abiding citizens, all you do is arm the enemy, because the enemy's not going to follow the law. The bad guys aren't going to listen to,
and it's not just the bad
law here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be guns. It could be drugs. It could be whatever. If you're a criminal and you have a criminal intent in your heart, you're going to do it. Now, if you try and be a law-abiding citizen and say, hey, the governor or the president or whoever says that I shouldn't have a weapon, okay, so I'm not going to have a weapon, you've just opted to make yourself a target.
Not only a target,
pure and simple.
Not only a target. If you look through history, the tyrannical governments in this world, and there's a documentary posted on our website, A History of Gun Control, and it goes all over the world, and it shows what happens to populations that are disarmed. Again, what Ward's saying, and I've said it before, is true about the criminals, but that's not what the Second Amendment's about. The Second Amendment is to keep the government afraid of the people. That's what it's about. When you get a whole lot of people with AR-15s all in a formation, that's a powerful situation right there, and it's something that the government hates. The government that has devolved into this leftist, damn near on both sides of the aisle. There's some on the right too, but that amendment is in the Constitution to prevent us from being ruled. We are governed by consent. We give consent to be governed, but we refuse to be ruled. And when you allow some idiot like Dianne Feinstein to convince you that banning assault weapons because of whatever the reasons they cite, if you read the Federalist Papers and the actual Second Amendment, it is designed to allow for a militia other than the government. That's what it is about. It is about ensuring that we are never enslaved. And believe me, the people that are in Washington right now would make you a slave as soon as they could.
Here's the question you got to ask yourself. We'll go back to the guy that shot up the place in Colorado, and this retard that shot up all the kids in Connecticut. Was there an assault weapon of any sort used? All of a sudden, that because of these two random acts of stupidity and violence by losers, I'll call a peg, they're losers. Neither one of them committed any of the acts with an automatic weapon. So why all of a sudden is the automatic weapon at the forefront of their argument? I could understand them saying that maybe that there should be, a more in-depth looks into mental health or mental stability or whatever, because the kid that shot up Connecticut was supposedly crazy. Maybe that's what needs reformed is mental health conditions. There was no automatic weapons used at any of these occurrences for you to come out and just say out of the blue, we're going to go after automatic weapons. There wasn't an automatic weapon used, folks.
The thing
no matter
about
how
her
they
bill,
want to spin it, there was not an automatic weapon used.
And the thing about her bill, the semi-automatic weapons ban or whatever the hell they're calling it, that's just in the title. When you go down through the rest of the bill, most handguns are banned. Most semi-automatic magazine-fed handguns are banned. So it's not about what they say it's about. They dusted off this old bill from '93 that they probably wrote in the '60s, and they're just reinventing it. It's not like she had some brainstorming session. She's been waiting to do this for years.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's like anything else. It's it's a power grab.
Certainly.
And you never let a good crisis go to waste. And even though this crisis has absolutely nothing to do with automatic weapons, they've already painted the picture, and the complicit mainstream media has gone right alongside them and said, yeah, these are automatic weapons, and automatic weapons are bad. Automatic weapons aren't bad in the hands of the right people.
Absolutely not. And these low information people are going to get us again because they don't do their homework. And I know how I felt when I was a young man and I didn't know any better, but ladies and gentlemen, this is serious. Now, I'm sure we'll come back to that at some point, but I asked myself as I was writing the show notes before I watched Fox News Sunday, can we keep Benghazi alive? Because Benghazi justice hasn't been done in Benghazi yet. And they were talking about it. Chris Wallace was talking about it with Dianne Feinstein and Lindsey Graham. And I think Clinton's going to have to testify. I do. And I just hope the right people are asking the questions and they're not afraid. They should, if you have more than 10 years in Congress, they shouldn't let you ask the questions. Bring one of these 50 guys up that just got there.
Well, here's the thing too, Hutch. Clinton was scheduled to testify last week, and she had some sort of a event, and she passed out and hit her head, and she had a concussion and never went to the doctor. I have never had an undiagnosed concussion. If I had a concussion, the doctor told me I had a concussion. Number one. Number two, okay, that's over. Apparently she's healed from this concussion, because if she's not taking constant blows to the head, concussions kind of clear themselves up. So why can anybody out there tell me why? Okay, it's been a week. Your concussion symptoms have cleared up. Go fucking testify.
It's been 3 months since Benghazi. 3 months since 4 people were murdered.
And she's left the country so she can celebrate New Year's and Palo Vista or some crazy ass thing. She left the country. And
these people would elect her. They would vote for her for president anyway. This low information thing kills me, man. It's killing our country. It really is. I mean, it's just it's sickening. I mean, Fast and Furious is dead. You might as well say that's dead. I mean, what's happening there?
Yeah, nobody's. I'm kind of disappointed in Darrell Issa.
Well, they still have that civil thing. They still have a civil. I haven't heard anything about it.
Terry's family is suing the government, but
even the government, even Issa, then weren't they going for a civil court case or something like that? Still, I don't know. I think that
it's going to get swept under.
Oh yeah,
and that's the same thing that's going to happen with Benghazi. What happened in Benghazi is nothing short of treasonous.
Oh right,
nothing.
I agree.
And the fact that nothing's happening with it.
I thought Fast and Furious was reaching that level until Benghazi happened. Once Benghazi happened, I'm thinking, how in the hell is this guy still? How did he get elected president? Are there that many leftists in this country? I mean, I understand the corruption and I understand the stupid people, but murder's murder, man. To see that guy out there and that crowd of Libyans, that just
dragging the body through the streets
makes you nauseous. You just wonder what's going on with our country. And I'll tell you something else, something that somebody ought to pursue. There's got to be accountability in the media. They have to be now. The kid, the Zimmerman family, is suing NBC, and I hope they get millions. But this ought to be all the time. I mean, every time these people tell a blatant lie that it's provable that they're lying, somebody ought to sue them. We ought to bankrupt them. You know, just with the truth. I'm not trying to talk about an agenda. Just plain truth. If you lie, it's $1 million every time.
Well, you got to make it even more than that, because $1 million to NBC is nothing.
Yeah, but they lie so many times.
When you consider that what's that lefty that does the Today Show, the bald prick, he makes $12 million a year.
Yeah.
So $1 million to them is nothing. No, you got to hit him and hit him and hit him and hit him and say, okay, look, you lied about this, you forged this. It's basically what happened with Dan Rather with the George Bush documents. They blatantly came out. They proved that they lied. That's what has to happen now.
Exactly.
Prove that they lied, because Dan Rather lost every bit of credibility he ever had when he went after Bush with fake documents.
Yeah.
And he lost his job over it. And I think that the same thing should happen to the Today Show, because the Today Show is the one that did it, and they're the one that creatively edited.
They ought to hold the network executives. They ought to hold them accountable. I mean, put them in jail if they're caught. That Zimmerman guy, man, they ruined him out of pure lies, out of pure racist bullshit. They ruined that guy. And it's
the person that reported it, the person that edited it, and the person that put it on the air, the producer of the show. Every one of them should have to stand up, and every one of them should be liable.
Absolutely.
They slandered that man. They slandered his name for good.
Yeah.
They basically associated him with racial violence forever.
Yeah, it's horrible, man. I mean, we got to cut these trees down. We got to start chipping away at them, because, I mean, it's ruining our country. These network news people are, and it's not just video. I mean, it's on the radio. It's not as much on the radio, but it's in newsprint and in Hollywood. Hollywood has to get a piece of this responsibility too. This is just terrible, man. And it wasn't always this way. I mean, this can be repaired. And soon, I hope. Islam's latest contributions to peace, ladies and gentlemen. Muhammad is God's apostle. Those who follow him are harsh to the unbelievers, but merciful to one another. That's from the Quran 48:29. On December 29th in Peshawar, Pakistan, 21 captured soldiers are executed in cold blood by Sunni fundamentalists at a cricket field. December 28th, Busari, Nigeria, Islamists tie up 15 women and children, then slit their throats while shouting praises to Allah. 27th of December, Charsada, Pakistan, 4 children are injured when radicals set off a bomb outside a rival mosque. On the same day, Tarin Kot, Afghanistan, a religious policeman helps his Sunni brothers slaughter 4 fellow officers in their sleep. Quetta, Pakistan, a Christian girl is shot execution style through the head. Bouira, Algeria, 2 children ages 12 and 14 are ripped to shreds by an Islamist bomb. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time. And Ward has seen fit to put a picture, a visual back in my head that I'm not very comfortable with. It involves Al Sharpton at about 350 pounds, wearing a running suit, a very loud running suit, and another little girl that's just lying her ass off. What have we found, Ward?
We have found that Tawana Brawny, and we brought her up a couple times on the show, she's actually been found living in Virginia under an alias for 25 years after her rape hoax. She's working as a nurse, and, I think that the fact that she understands, when she was 15 and living in Wappingers Falls, New York, said that 6 white law enforcement officials abducted and raped her because she was black. Of course, immediately Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Bill Cosby, insert, racially motivated names here, came to her rescue and started throwing money at her so that they could get it on the news. And Al Sharpton paraded her up and down the streets as she was this poor little girl who was raped by 6 law enforcement officers. And then when it was proved that it didn't ever happen, there was never an apology. The media never said, yeah, oops.
She disappeared. Al Sharpton got famous.
Yeah, well, Sharpton was famous before Tawana. I mean,
That was his big. That was his big jump off.
That was his big jump off. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what got his name to where everybody on the planet knew who he was, but it didn't make him any less of a loser. And so it finally came out, and in fact, the law enforcement officer sued her, and she never paid the $190,000 defamation judgment against the one man that she accused.
Yeah, and I mean, she was, like you said, she was proven to be a liar. And I mean, Al Sharpton's a bad guy too, man. I mean, he comes off as a clown, but he's been behind some things. He was behind some riots in a Jewish neighborhood, and I'm trying to remember the details. It was a record store that got set on fire, and people died inside there. I mean, this guy's no joke, and he comes on NBC. NBC hires him. To me, that kills me. This guy, now they got him in a nice suit. He still owes all kinds of tax money, and he lost some weight. The crack must have, took some pounds off or something. The man can hardly read or write, and he's a news anchor. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. It's nuts.
Well, it's for nothing else. I mean, if you remember back in the day, after Kurt Angle won the gold medal, and he wasn't expected to win, and blah 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 blah, and he won the gold medal, and he was being from Pittsburgh. They gave him all kind of jobs. He'd be on the news, and and he was terrible, and so they moved him to hawking pizzas, and he was terrible. Then he went to the WWF and start wrestling for them, and well, what do you know? A wrestler made a pretty good wrestler, and so but that's where it went. It's the same thing with Sharpton. Sharpton's a clown that they bring out because they think that that's going to bring some kind of ratings because of name recognition. The only thing that I recognize that is associated with his name is he's a fat bastard loser who does absolutely nothing except hate the American people. He hates white people. He hates Jewish people. He hates everybody that's not black.
He hates black people too, or he wouldn't do
what
he
hates black people too.
He wouldn't do what he's doing.
But he masks it.
Yeah.
He masks that really well.
Yeah, it's something. I hope we've heard the last of her, though. That was an ugly period in our history, man. That was bad news.
But I just wanted to put the tracksuit back.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll probably be the thumbnail for the show. I'm gonna have to find another. I'm gonna have to find an owl picture, and they're out there. They're numerous.
Oh yeah.
Obama's National Labor Relations Board plays Santa to unions. These guys have got you all thinking about the fiscal cliff, and have you all mad at people that lawfully own weapons and things like that. Well, the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, was able to quietly overturn long-standing precedents to give unions some Christmas gifts that will ultimately hand them a windfall. In the steamrolling style that is now the hallmark of the Obama administration and its extensions, the NLRB voted 3-1 to gut the Supreme Court's 1988 Communications Workers of America, they just struck a year or so ago, if you recall, versus Beck decision, whereby union workers in non-right-to-work states were able to withhold the portion of their dues that unions spend on political activism. The NLRB now allows that unions no longer are required to provide proof through audits of their finances to so-called Beck objectors that their money is not spent on union politics. In English, what that means is if you happen to be a conservative or you are a Democrat that isn't necessarily a communist yet, and you don't want your union dues money by your union being spent to elect your representative or your Senator Feinstein or Pelosi or any of the other leftists, you don't have a say in it anymore. You used to be able to object, and you could get that money returned to you. It took till 1988 for that to happen, but now they've stripped that. So now it's on again. Anything they want to do, this kind of thing sickens me. I mean, to have union dues, because I know a lot of people, you probably do too, that are union workers. Oh, yeah. And they're good people, man, and they're not leftists. But they're forced to pay to advance the leftist agenda because the union agenda is much worse than just a Democrat Party agenda. The union agenda is communist.
Oh, by far, without a doubt. And and the fact that they make it just so insidious that you how dare you think that you have a right to work just because you're trained in this craft. You have to be, there's places in Pennsylvania. There's places, I mean, and it's more in the Northeast than you see it like in the South. The South are basically right to work states, and basically you come in and say, hey, I can do this job as an electrician. I can prove myself. You prove yourself on, your first 90 days or whatever, and you get the job. You're an electrician. Here, you have to go pay for school dues through the union. Then you start off as, a union. I can't remember what the hell they call them, like laborer or lackey or whatever.
Journeyman.
Well, I think it's even before that, because then all you're able to do then is carry pipe.
Yeah.
Or carry conduit. And then once you get past that point, you're allowed to actually feed the wire through the conduit, but you're not allowed to you're not allowed to hook it into the jumper box,
right? Because
that requires a master electrician. And I was actually on a job site where an electrician was on a ladder, and the ladder started to fall, and I caught it, and I kept this guy from breaking his neck. And I had a union guy come up and square up with me. What the hell are you doing? Why'd you grab that ladder? I said, because if I didn't grab it, he was going to die. And they said, you're not a union. You're not an electrician. You don't touch that ladder.
It's ridiculous. I mean, if you have any doubts as to the communist, leanings or history behind unions, just Google right here in this city. Google Pittsburgh Union pictures and look back in the day at the different placards and signs with the closed fist and the workers of the world unite. And I mean, I think there's even some with Soviet symbols on them. But make no mistake about it, that was a plan. I think it's for people who are finally coming around to their senses, though. It's kind of encouraging.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's happening in Wisconsin and Detroit, Michigan, where they're starting to wake up and go, hey, you know what? All right, we're not going to – I think that what Scott what was his last name?
Walker.
Scott Walker, that's it. Scott Walker did it in Wisconsin, where he said, you can still be a union member. You can still pay your union dues. They just can't take them out of your check.
Right.
You have to make the conscious decision to mail them the check. That's all he did. So, for where the unions come out and said, oh, he did this, he did that. No, he just made it illegal for them to take it, for them to reach into your paycheck and take your money. If you want to be a member of the union, that's up to you. I mean, it's like anything else. You want to be a member of the NRA? Great. You pay the dues. The NRA doesn't come into your paycheck and take the dues out. That's your choice to be a member of that organization, and if that's the case, you should be making the payment to them. They shouldn't have any right to reach into your paycheck and take a damn thing from you.
I'd like to see Governor Corbett step up on the right to work state issue. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but in Philadelphia in the last couple of days, they're blaming the unions for an arson at a job site where some non-union workers were hired to do some work. I mean, that kind of thing has got to go, man. I mean, it's just got to go. It doesn't work in a free market society. It might have worked in the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s, but we've got global competition now. There wasn't global competition in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Everybody's shit was blown up from World War II still. It took them a while to rebuild.
It was part of that, and then because of World War II, I think that when we became a global economy because of it, so that we could actually use that to try and prevent another world war, because instead of Japan hating us for whatever, their economy thrives because we buy something from them. And it's the same as with China, with Germany, with so on and so forth. The problem is right now that these third world countries aren't getting none of that gravy. Because all they can produce is sand and heroin. So, and oil. Yeah, they can produce some oil. But, I mean, other than that, and that's where it is. And that's part of the reason that they hate us. They see that, all these free countries are able to do things, because they have a GDP, because they make trades, they make deals, they work with other countries, and these jihadi crazy bastards don't want to make peace with anybody, you know, and as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think what we should do is get that damn Keystone pipeline built, tell them fucking Arabs to start drinking their goddamn oil,
I agree.
and say fuck you.
I agree.
You don't like us? We
I'll
don't
tell
like
you,
neither.
you're going to see something here in the very near future. You're going to see manufacturing come back to this region because it's historically documented that manufacturing springs up where cheap energy is, and the energy's cheap here. I'll tell you, I heard something. A friend of mine's son works for Range Resources in this area, and I think he told me they just bought 500 new trucks. They had purchased trucks for their employees a couple years ago, regular vehicles, Chevys, and then they gave them a stipend to maintain them or something. But now they're purchasing 500 new vehicles, LP engines. That says a lot. I mean, that tells you something. And I think that's the future. I think that the sooner somebody with some capital gets in and starts converting some of these gas stations, I think it's going to be on. I don't think there's going to be a hesitation at all. I mean, we'll get off that oil.
Yeah, well, I mean, we currently have buses in the city of Pittsburgh that run on natural gas.
Almost every forklift inside a warehouse is LP.
Yeah. So, and not only that, I was just reading a thing that Apple Computers is going to start moving its some of its production in back into the United States.
Good.
So I mean, I think that people are starting to see, hey, because of what we went through, between NAFTA and some of these other crazy ass, EPA bullshit things that we went through, companies still needed the widgets or whatever it was. So if they could send the widget making to China and have Chinese make the widgets for them and turn around and sell them at a profit, then so be it. We basically allowed the EPA and all these leftist organizations to shoot us in the foot and say, you know what, we're going to cut off our nose to spite our face.
Let me try to illustrate something here on that point. Because it never gets, I don't think the understanding is out there. When you hear people talk about redistributing the wealth, most of the time what comes to mind is rich Americans redistributing their wealth to poor Americans, and that's not the case. These leftists are redistributing the wealth from the United States of America to the East. That's what redistribution of wealth is all about. That's what the unions are all about. That they feel that this is an unfair situation. With the Occupy Wall Street mantra of the 1% and the 99%, you know what the 1% of the world is? About $35,000 a year. And there's people in this country that don't think that's right and don't think that should stand. And that's what redistribution of wealth is. That's what steel mills going from here via unions and the EPA over to China and Japan was all about. It's about redistributing the wealth to other countries. It's not just in this country. Just had to throw that out there. Eric sent us a story. He emailed the show, and I thought one of the stories was worthy to make the cut. Help the family privatize and depoliticize. I think this issue, Ward, right here, the American family has never before been confronted with such powerful threats to its standing and stability. While many scholars agree that a loving mother and father in a healthy marriage are vital to the well-being of the children, the nuclear family is under enormous assault in the academic and popular cultures, which disparage traditional morality and civil manners. Children are left unloved and without role models to nurture and protect them as they journey through adolescence into adulthood and beyond. The consequences can clearly be seen in the demographics of young people reared in fatherless homes. 85% of imprisoned youth, 72% of high school dropouts, 80% of rapists, and 63% of teenagers who commit suicide. This is a huge problem, and it's going to have devastating effects to our culture.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, and this all still ties back into what we were talking about before. It's the role models. It's the fact that these kids, have to have somebody, like when I was growing up, I played football, I played sports, I played basketball, whatever. And we'd get our ass kicked, whatever. And you come home and the old man would say, "Hey, how'd you guys do? We got our ass kicked. Well, you'll get them next time."
Yeah.
And that was a good enough response. That's okay. Yeah. I don't need affirmation. Oh, you guys must have been cheated, whatever. It was always, well, you'll get them next time. These kids now, and part of it too, I'm not just going to say it's solely because, of single parents. The part of it too comes from the fact that both parents may have to work to support a family. The price of stuff isn't cheap. Electricity, just basic household needs. You may have to have both parents working. That's just the nature of the way things are. Back when we grew up, it wasn't that way. My dad got up, he went to work. My mom was home when I got home from school. That's the way it was. But as things got more expensive, as
we changed a little too. We got a little materialistic where we had to have more stuff. But I think as long as that there was a man in the picture, not necessarily there every second of every day, but as long as there was always a reckoning, if you will. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that the population that we're talking about, a large section of the black population, sadly, and segments of every other society except Asians, you notice they always have their family intact because their culture is older, and they haven't had this massive attack on their culture the way we have. And if you doubt me, please take some time and go to the website and search. You can search, the website's searchable. Search cultural Marxism, and you will come up with a 90-minute film that will show you that every single thing that we've ever talked about on this program is all related. This is all related. This is a plan, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not a conspiracy theory. You watch the film, and you tell me if it's not right.
Well, it's the same thing as I was saying before, though, Hutch. It's well, this is hard. I quit. There's nothing that causes the father to stick around, because it's hard.
Yeah, it's
too hard for it. All this being married and raising kids, that's too hard. I quit. They don't know how to knuckle down and say, okay, well, we got to work through this. We got to do whatever. It's just, we have 4 kids, and I'm out.
And I'll be honest. I'll full disclosure here. I've been divorced and remarried, but one thing that I made sure of is I did not divorce those kids. I've seen those kids all the time. I never missed a beat. I didn't sleep in the same house as them, but they're over at my house all the time. They're over at my house, and I'm not trying to absolve myself here. I'm just saying, if you are in a relationship that doesn't work out and you have children, don't divorce the children. They still need you. Even though you can't get along with the adult, the children still need you. You still need to be at their games and all that stuff. But anyway, that was just me. Now, something happened last week, Ward. This freaking newspaper, this leftist-ass newspaper, the New York Journal News, published all of the gun permit holders in 2 counties in New York, in Westchester and Rockland counties. That they published a map that allows the readers to view those who have a license to own handguns around them. Can you believe the audacity of this newspaper? Not only that, but the stupidity. I can't believe the stupidity of it, because the problem is, what you just did, you jackasses, dumbasses,
you didn't embarrass anybody. What you did is you just gave every criminal a map to who they can go rob,
and you made all those other people
who has the guns.
You made the other people safe. Now I I would urge that you store your handguns in a place that's not easy to find or that's secure, because they might try to case your house and see when you're not home and then come in and steal your gun.
But for the most part, all they did was basically put out a roadmap to who you can rob. Look, these are all of your neighbors that don't have a gun. If you want to go rob somebody, go get one of them.
I mean, it's like that sign. It's like that sign we posted on the website a couple times with that you put out in front of your house and you say, "Hey, mine had a big arrow on it pointing to your neighbor's house, saying, 'Hey, this guy doesn't have any guns over there. I do, but I promise I will not mess with him. I won't get in your way.' You know, he wants to get rid of all guns. He don't have any."
And that's basically what they did.
Yeah, they did.
They said, "Here's a big map of everybody that doesn't have a gun." And if I was a non-gun owner, I would be canceling my subscription to that newspaper. And if I was a gun owner, I'd be canceling my subscription to that newspaper, just because they're plain out of their fucking mind stupid.
And not only that, but the audacity of it. I mean, for them to feel that they have that, that they're allowed to do that they can just get away with that, outing their own people, like they're child molesters or something. I mean, that's basically what they did. They basically treated these people like there was something wrong with them. And I just find that sickening. I do. I mean, that's something. But in retaliation against the New York newspaper, the Journal News, that published the addresses of those pistol permit holders in 2 of the state's counties, a blogger has created a map pinpointing the addresses of the newspaper's employees. I thought that was pretty good. You know,
yeah, you never underestimate the power of the internet.
And that brings me to a point that I read an article about recently. And I think finally, if it's not on the website, it's going to be. There's going to be a link to Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals on our website very soon. Because I think we finally entered into an age, into a generation or a mindset that we have to fight these leftists the same way they're fighting us. And you've seen that several times in recent history here. You saw it with Chick-fil-A. You saw it with this situation here. You've seen it with these petitions, these online, the White House petitions, trying to kick Piers Morgan to the curb. He makes me sick, man. I can't stand getting lectured by a guy with an English accent about how messed up my country is, and he's in it getting paid in it. You know, that guy.
The funny part about that whole thing is, with the way that they set up this, petition thing on whitehouse.gov, is anybody can create a petition on there. And the rule is that if you can get 25,000 signatures, the White House has to respond to it. And basically, that's what's happened with Piers Morgan, and that's the same thing that happened we talked about last week with the Westboro Baptist Church being declared a hate group. The White House has to respond to that.
I wonder if they're ever going to, though, because remember they were those not sequestration, the what do you do when you unfriend the United States? Secede, the secession.
Yeah.
The unfriend.
Unfriend. Holy Facebook, Batman.
Those secession petitions got more than what they were needed, and I haven't heard anything from the White House, unless maybe they respond to them privately.
I don't know, but according to the I guess
right,
rules of engagement is that once you get 25,000 signatures, something has to be done, and I know that the Westboro Baptist Church had over 300,000 signatures on it.
Nice. Now we got a local guy that's I've met several times. I've talked to him. I spoke with him when we were when I attended the Carnegie Mellon University event with Tom Bolton. I saw Congressman Murphy there, and he's got the right idea with. He's a psychologist, and he's about ready to take over the chairmanship of the Energy and Commerce Committee's Oversight Subcommittee, and he's looking into the things you were speaking about at the beginning of the program about these shooters. They create problems in their lives. They have difficulty analyzing social interaction. They tend to blame others for their misfortune. They turn sadness and bad feelings into anger, he said in an appearance on Wednesday on C-SPAN's Washington Journal, crisply ticking through a list of traits that angry children tend to exhibit. So what he's looking at is he's looking at really looking into the mental health side of these events and trying to see what he can do from his new chairmanship. So that's good. Murph?
Well, I mean, if it, you know, we expect teachers to, you know, to help monitor, you know, a child's well-being, you know, so to make sure that they're not being abused at home or, you know, things like that, and look for educational difficulties and try and find that kind of stuff, you know, ADD, ADHD, and, you know, all that stuff. And we expect the teachers to look for that. Maybe this would be part of some sort of curriculum that could be added that the teachers look for. And if they have a student who exhibits these types of, you know, these types of characteristics, you know, maybe, you know, get them help before it gets out of hand, and you know, they go past, you know, go over the edge, and they start, you know, becoming, you know, hurting, you know.
Yeah,
and a big part of it is a lot of these kids, you know, that have these types of mental problems, normally they don't hurt anybody else, but they hurt themselves. They end up killing themselves. And if Tim Murphy's thing has, you know, has that goal in mind, God bless him. I think that that's great. You know, I mean, you know, I talk a lot about, you know, and sometimes it sounds like I'm making light of, you know, people with mental health issues, because most of them are politicians. But the thing is, you know, I mean, it is a truly a scary thing, and for you know, if there's a way that we can get these kind of issues identified sooner rather than later, I'm all for it.
I'm for having a guy that's local. I mean, he's represents Moon Township, which is where I work, but it's good to have a local guy starting to get a little bit of rank. I mean, it's been a long time. You don't hear anything from Toomey or anything like that, but
I mean, you know, in their defense, you know, he came from a psychology background, you know, and that would, you know, trend more to his wheelhouse, you know. And like I said, I'm not. This is something I'm not trying to make political. I'm trying to make, you know, there is a sense of urgency that these kids, you know, there are kids out there that need help, you know, whether they're cutting themselves or they're, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and
we never had that kind of shit growing up, so I don't to me,
never even wore a helmet riding a bike. I mean,
yeah, for me, it's hard to understand. You know, right. I never wanted to hurt myself because I didn't have a high score on a freaking video game. You know, I don't understand it, but I think that there's somebody out there that should be, you know, if it's more training for teachers to identify these types of problems, because I know that they went through that earlier, that there was training that went to the teachers so that they could identify, you know, child abuse problems and ADHD problems, and if this is a legitimate, you know, if there's a legitimate number of symptoms that you can follow that make sense and say, okay, you know, we see that if this happens and this happens and this happens, it can lead to really bad stuff.
At least look at it closer, yeah. I mean, you know, at least identify it and isolate it. He's also a lieutenant commander in the Coast Guard Reserve, or the Naval Reserve, or one of those two that I didn't know.
Something to do with boats.
Yeah. Let's talk about Dianne Feinstein, a U.S. Senator from California from November 10th.
Do we have to?
I'd just like to get a little information out there about this witch. Feinstein supported the Iraq War resolution in the vote of October 11th, 2002, but has said she was misled by the president. She is also strongly opposed to the Second Amendment rights And one of her first accomplishments in the Senate was passing an assault weapons ban, and she unsuccessfully sponsored legislation that would require licensing of all guns. While she is not considered a conservative, Feinstein is considered more moderate than most Democrats from the San Francisco Bay Area. Feinstein supports the Patriot Act, saying that it helps the protection of the American people. She supported the Bush tax cuts in 2001 and supported the GOP's Medicare prescription drug bill in 2003. She is also a supporter of capital punishment and was the main Democrat sponsor of the 2006 constitutional flag burning amendment. On other issues, Feinstein is quite liberal. She has a solidly pro-abortion voting record. She called Guantanamo Bay detention camp a failed experiment and believes it should be shut down, and she's highly corrupt. I mean, her husband's a banker, and she moved legislation for banking. And we're running out of time, so Ward, why don't you catch us up with the Air Force General, and ladies and gentlemen, you can go to the show notes links page on the website and get any of these stories in their entirety.
Yeah, there was an Air Force general who blew the whistle on Obama, but the media, once again, didn't bother to report on it. And, you know, it's the old story, you know, if a tree falls and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, how about if an Air Force general blows the whistle on the Obama White House, does anyone in the media hear the corruption?
Yeah,
apparently there was another scandal where an Air Force general, do we have a name? General Sheldon, told lawmakers that he was pressured to be less than honest by the White House when he gave testimony before Congress. So, I mean, doesn't this kind of ring a bell? I mean, you have a general.
Well, look how many have been defrocked here lately. I mean, this is you got to wonder what the 3 stars are thinking. You know, you hope there's some courageous, and I know there are some courageous generals out there. They're not all Petraeuses.
Well, this guy basically came forward and said, no, what they want me to do is wrong. What it basically was one of the big Obama campaign people had a contract with Light Squared.
Yeah.
And they wanted the award to be the award for this Air Force Space Command contract to be given to Light Squared, and Light Squared had done business in Virginia, and it's owned by billionaire Philip Falcone.
I think that was the one. That was the one that it was going to mess the GPS up and everything else.
Yeah, it had to do with it allows the company to build out a national 4G wireless network on the cheap. Anytime that they say on the cheap, that's code for it's not going to work right, and it's going to cost us twice as much money. But at a hearing on Thursday, lawmakers in the Strategic Force Subcommittee, especially Republican Chairman Michael Turner, requested that the House Oversight Committee investigate if Falcone's company garnered any type of special treatment from the White House or Obama appointees. The hearing came after a report by a blogger on a news and commentary site, unlike Steel City Resistance, that alleged that the Obama White House had pressed General Sheldon to downplay his concerns about the proposed Light Squared system. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is once again the White House coming in and basically advocating lying to Congress. And I can't.
It's so it still gets me what Alan West said. It just they're so quick to lie. They don't have an inkling of care about it, man. They'll lie in a New York minute, and we'll be here week to week, so we can document it for you, ladies and gentlemen. Please visit the website steelcityresistance.wordpress.com. Email the show scrtv@live.com. Ward, the Facebook page is looking pretty good.
Hit up the Facebook page, facebook.com/Steel City Resistance. We're getting a lot more people showing up. We're getting a lot more comments coming in, and we're digging it. So keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
There's only 2 of us, man. So any help we can get, we're really appreciative.
That's true. We appreciate that you listen to the show too, and would just ask you to, if you have any like-minded people or somebody that maybe is on the fence, let them know about the show. And we always like having new listeners and viewers. Ward, if you don't have anything else for the nation, sir.
No, sir. I'm over and out.
Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will catch up with you next week.